You're listening to Parasearch Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or their affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Haunted Histories with your host Penny G. Morgan, right here on Parasearch UK Radio.
And a very warm Wednesday welcome to everyone. Yep, it's me, it's Penny, it's a Wednesday, so that means it's Haunted Histories time. I hope you've all been having a good week. I've had a busy couple of weeks. Last weekend I was out with the awesome girls from the Paranormal Sisters. We were at a place called Bromham Mill, and I'm sure I'll be doing a show on it at some point because it was rather blooming interesting. And we got access for the first time to the actual cottage, which is a derelict cottage where the miller would have lived. And let's just say that was quite active. And then this weekend I'm out with C&D Paranormal at Harwich Redoubt. I'm going to be tagging along with their investigation and doing a few little experiments of my own to get material for the new book I'm writing. So, and that leads me on to say thank you ever so much to everyone who's bought my Haunted History so far, and to those people who've messaged me and sort of said how much they enjoyed it. You don't know how much that means to me to hear that, so thank you ever so much from the bottom of my heart. But without much further ado, I'm pretty sure my guest is chomping at the bit to start talking, because he wants to hear all the history stuff I'm going to be teaching him. And plus, I want him to tell me all about his chafe nipples from his recent London Marathon exploits. He's chuckling in the background. It's Mr. Lee Roberts.
Hello,
dude. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. You?
I'm all right, thank you. Have your nipples recovered?
Good. Yes. Well, I took your advice. I had plasters over my nipples. But what people didn't tell me was when I'm running the London Marathon is that under my arm. So I trained the whole of my training with a t-shirt on, or kind of like one of these tight tops on. Yeah. So my arms weren't conditioned to rubbing skin against skin. So when I'm wearing a vest, like literally first couple of miles, I felt a burn under my armpits where I was running, and at the end it was on fire. So that's the only part that I kind of only had any chafe like under my armpits.
You've not lost any toenails yet? Not lost any toenails yet? No? Toes
are all good, which I was surprised about. Was walking again within 2 days.
Wow.
So it was all good. I went for a run again on Friday. Went for a run again yesterday. So we're back on it.
Cool. So you're keeping running. You're keeping running then.
I am going to keep on running. It'll be a shame to stop now, really.
It would,
it would be a shame. So I'm carrying on running. I'm hoping to do something else with running involved. So whether it's London Marathon next year, or whether it's an obstacle course or a Tough Mudder or something. Yeah. So running always keeps your fitness up. So
it does.
So I'm going to keep on doing that, and then just build everything else around it and see what happens.
Well done. Well, it's an amazing achievement to do something like the London Marathon. I've only ever done a half marathon, and that killed me. So I think the full marathon, because I don't like running at the best of times.
I trained up to half marathon standard. I wanted to train more. I wanted to go up to 16, 17 miles, but I only trained up to half marathon because of different things, work, illness. So I was quite happy I could get halfway with no problems. And in my head was, if I can get to 17 miles and then maybe walk a mile and then run a mile, then walk a mile. Well, with the excitement of the day and the crowd that are fantastic and everything, it wasn't until I hit around mile 21 that I hit a wall.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a wall as in that people would think of as in my legs not moving, because I didn't stop running all the way.
It's a mental wall, isn't it?
All the way. It was just emotional.
Yeah.
It was just emotional. People around you are hitting their wall, and they're breaking, and they're crumbling, and you can see them, and they're seeing their family, and they're breaking down, which is making me all emotional. Yeah. And I was thinking, I hope I don't see my family, because if I do, I know that'd be it for me. I'm gone. So I didn't see them again. So I saw them at mile 6, which was good. I didn't see them again until the finish corner, the last corner. They were stood on the corner. But at that point, it was like, do I go over to my family or do I get to that finish line? And the finish line was more appealing. Yeah. So I got to the finish line, and then that was it. I just was an emotional wreck. And when I met up with my family, I have not cried like that I can't even remember. I just blubbered.
It's weird,
like a baby.
Isn't it? I mean, I did that when I did the North London half, and I tore my calf muscle about a mile in, but I kept going. I as people who've run full-blown marathons faster than I ran that half marathon, but I was limping, and I hit my wall at about mile 9, I think it was. And at that point, if somebody had come past me on one of the motorbikes and said, do you want us to take you to the finish, I would have done it, because I was just mentally sort of, I can't keep going, I just can't. But then I thought, when you think of people who sponsored you and you think, I can't let them down, I've got to keep going, I've got to finish this.
Well, that's it. With that being in mind, that was one of the things that was in my mind. So before we move on to obviously the paranormal, I did it for Children with Cancer UK, which was what was being sponsored for it. It was my cousin, who is 9 now, Jessica.
I saw the photo the other day. Yeah,
she's really fit and healthy, and got all her weight back and all. She's got loads of hair now, but she went through all that when she was 6, 7, and she was one of the lucky ones. But I saw firsthand how that affected myself, how that affected her, how that affected the family. And Children with Cancer UK are all about getting them children to the end, ring the bell at the end to say they're clear. That's what they're all about, helping them in any way they can. So that's what I did the charity, the run for, and that's the charity that I ran for, which was fantastic. And that's what kind of got me through. And I was thinking, if I can't run another few miles, how has Jessica got through them few years, of being ill and tubes coming out of her and no hair and and missing school? And, that's what was going through my head. That's what pushed me through. Yeah. And she's one of the lucky ones. They're not all that lucky. Yeah. So thank you to everyone that did sponsor. My target was £1,000, and I think we're on almost 1,200 now. Brilliant. So I was over the moon with that. So I get quite emotional when we talk about that. But
it is an amazing. I mean, I think pushing yourself out of your own comfort zone, whatever it is you're doing. And I've got an idea for your next challenge, Lee. And no, it's not attending a history lecture. Why don't you do the 3 peaks? The 3 peaks challenge.
Yes, well, I've been offered that a few times. I have done Ben Nevis 3 times over different times. I've done Snowdon when I was a lot young, very young now. I did it with my granddad when he was alive, and I think I was 6. I was 6 when he died, so that shows you how young I was when I did Snowdon. So that is a challenge that has been put to me.
Well, I tell you what, Roberts, you agree to do it, and me and my husband will do it with you.
Right. Okay. Well,
as long as you give us time to get the well, not him so much. He's a fit bugger anyway. But as long as you give us time to get the training in and get babysitters, although I might have to ask Maz to babysit my boys as well. We'll do it with you. I haven't asked him, but he loves stuff like that. So we'll do it with you.
We'll have a chat then. We'll see if we can get it sorted. Yeah, we'll get it sorted.
We will.
Excellent.
Because that's something I would like to do. Because I think I'd die about halfway up, but I think if you start with Ben Nevis, work your way through that. Ben Nevis is the hardest one. That's the hardest one. It's about 3.5 hours up, 2.5 hours down. But that's the hardest one mentally. Once you've cracked that, the other ones are a breeze in the park. The other 2 alone are like Ben Nevis. That's kind of, when you've done Ben Nevis, you've done halfway.
So I think, I say anybody can do Ben Nevis. I see kids going up Ben Nevis. As long as you're fairly fit and you've trained to a standard where you've done a bit of walking. Yeah. As long as you're going at your pace, you'll do Ben Nevis. Yeah, it'll be fine.
Well, so there you go. There you go. Agree to do. We'll do the 3 peaks.
Yes,
maybe that's our challenge for next year, and I'll get the husband along as well, because then he can carry the bags. He can be our Sherpa. So, apart from doing the marathon, which I am genuinely very impressed, and you made me cry, actually, the video when you were welling up, so thanks for that. Thanks for that. There's also been some sad news with your events company.
It is sad, but not sad in a way. So it's been something that I've been mulling over for a long time, really. With Haunted Events UK, I'll know more. We're not going to be doing Haunted Events UK as it is. It's kind of there are no more events. Several reasons, really. I've been doing events now for 13 years. And you know yourself, you've been on one of our events at the village. When I'm in event mode, I'm in event mode, and I'm kind of, those that have seen me at the village with other people's events, and I'm there babysitting the village or joining on their events, I can be a lot more myself. I can be a lot more sociable. I can chat. I can have a laugh.
Oh, you were very different when you were running your event. I was quite surprised. It was seriously. And I was like, this isn't the Lee I know.
Yeah. So that when I'm running my events, it's very much, I need to make sure the guests are where they're supposed to be. The team are where they're supposed to be. Timings are right. People are enjoying what they're doing. People are getting what they're supposed to be having. So I'm very much in event mode at that point. So the Lee Roberts that I want to be as a paranormal investigator doesn't really come out.
Yeah.
So that was all well and good to start with, kind of over the years, meeting new people. I've met some amazing people from doing events. But the time came where it was, I'm not really enjoying doing these anymore. It's becoming more of a chore than an enjoyment, which is why I started it in the first place as an enjoyment. And it was just, I was just falling out of love with the paranormal due to the events, and it was turning me against everything in the paranormal. So the media work, the hauntings that we was doing. So that took a break from Halloween right up until a couple of weeks ago, all because of, I kind of just needed that break. I needed that time out from events to go, let me just fall in love back with the paranormal. Why am I doing the paranormal? What is it what I want to achieve in the paranormal? And one of the things that had to give was the events. So I can just be myself. I can just do my own thing. I can still attend other people's events and go, you know what? Them 30 people there are not my responsibility. They're yours. And I can just be me and enjoy it again and be myself. Because like you saw when you came on the event, I wasn't that chirpy, bubbly
You apologised.
Kind of character.
If I remember rightly, you apologised to me and said, I'm so sorry, I've not been able to sort of spend time with you, but I'm running the event. And I was like, yeah, that's fine, I understand that. But it was quite strange to see you in what I'd almost call business mode, when this is the Lee that I'm used to. And I think we had a few laughs, sort of thing. I think the photo you took of me grinning next to the laptop when my name had come up on it, that kind of thing. But
I just can't. I could never relax when I'm on an event. And I've even got like yourself who came along as a special guest, other people that have come along, and I find myself apologising all the time to them because I feel like, well, I've invited them on, and then I feel ignorant for not being there and having a laugh with them. And I feel like some people might think, oh, you know what, he's a bit stuck up. But it's not that. It's that
I didn't think that at all, Lee. If that's any help, I didn't.
But so that's the reason Haunted Events is no more as it is. It's kind of we are looking at a few other things that are different to public events, of where we can take it forward in maybe a few years. But I'm definitely having a time out of running any events at all for now, and just enjoying it. So I'm doing the TV work, I'm doing other people's events, I'm obviously still working at the village, looking after other people's events, but just enjoyment again, just getting that enjoyment back and enjoying the paranormal investigation side of it. And,
well, you mentioned TV. You just dropped that one in there. I hear there's a new television programme that started last night. I think I know one of the names on it. I recognised all 4 of the names, but there's what's his name? Yeah. He's really camera shy. Lee?
That's right. Yeah, that's me.
Oh,
That'll be me.
It's you.
That'll be me. Yeah. So Paranormal Captured. It's on Pick, which is on Sky every Monday night at 10 p.m. So those that didn't watch last night, it's on next week. It's on for another 5 weeks. So it's a 6 episode series. So it's on for another 5 weeks. The concept of the show is basically looking at paranormal that has been caught on camera, or activity that they presume to be paranormal that has been caught on camera from all over the world, really. So there's clips. There's A stories, B stories, and C stories. So the C stories are clips from all over the world, little clips. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Some of these clips are hilarious. They are no way on this earth paranormal, but they are quite funny to watch because people do think they're paranormal. Yeah. But so then what you get is you get people commenting on them. So you've got quite a few psychologists, an experiment psychologist. You've got a couple of paranormal investigators, myself, that comment on these clips. Whether they use any of my clips, I don't know, because I just completely took the mick out of them because they was hilarious. Then you've got B stories. So the B stories are things that have been caught on camera, but instead of just showing the clips, we interview the people that caught these this phenomena and get their take on it, and then also get people commenting and saying whether they think it's paranormal. So, for instance, episode 3 is The Village. Where we look at things that I've caught on camera, things that have been caught over the years at the village, and then we'll interview people that have been there, and we'll also get comments from the experts as well. Last night's was 30 East Drive, so we went through that. And then you've got the A story, which is we take it up another notch, where you've got things that have been caught on camera. We interview the people that have caught them on camera, but then we also send in an investigator to try and look at these claims, recreate them, try and get something on camera themselves and see if they can get to the bottom of it.
That was a pub last night or something, wasn't it, with MJ?
Yes.
Was it the White Hart? Was it the White Hart?
The White Hart. Yeah. The White Hart, I think it's near Coventry Way.
Right.
So we've got the investigators for the show is MJ Dixon, Jane Harris, Danny Moss, and myself. We're the 4 investigators. We don't go out together as a team. We all go out individually. Okay. So MJ was last night.
Yeah.
Next week's my turn. So I go out next week looking at a party shop in Wales, which has claimed to have the spirit of a young servant girl called Sarah that haunts the place. So that's my turn. And then over the weeks you'll get Jane Harris will have a go, Danny will have a go, MJ has another turn. I think Jane has another turn as well. So it kind of is very fast paced. It's very quick. Yeah. Watch. So it's not kind of an investigation that flows all the way through. It's skipping from A stories, B stories, C stories, all the way through, skipping through. So it's very fast paced into kind of winding between all 3 stories and clips. Okay. So it came, the actual concept of it came across really well last night for me. I think because I haven't watched a full show. I've seen all the clips. I've seen the investigations as separate clips, but I've not seen how the show was put together. So, I mean, I'm biased, but I think Woodcut Media have done an amazing job at putting it all together, and it's something that was kind of needed. Of putting it all together, getting clips that are bonkers, getting clips that we think, that could be paranormal, and interviewing people, and also having an investigation in there as well. So the investigation's only really kind of 25% of the show. It's not much of the show. You've got other things going on around it. But I mean, I thought I was nervous, and I know the other guys that in the show was also nervous.
Yeah.
We was thinking, how is this going to come across? Is this going to be taken well? Is it going to look right? Are the experts, even though we are the experts ourselves, as far as the show's concerned, are they going to kind of slate us on the investigations? but it came across really well. You've got a bit of humour in there. You've got you've got the clips in there. So those of you that want to check it out, Monday night, 10 o'clock on Pick, Paranormal Captured.
Cool. I did record last night. I haven't watched it yet, but I did record it so that when your bit comes up, Lee, I can throw Rotten Tomatoes at my screen.
That's right. That's right. I'm not on much last night, so you won't have to throw many tomatoes. I'm only on a few little clips. So your TV may be able to stand until next week, but then I'm sorry, but the Roberts takes over for 2 weeks.
Do you know what the best thing about these sort of shows now is because I talk to so many people now. People like yourself and all that I know, and when my 9-year-old is sitting there with me watching, because he loves all those kind of shows, even though he does sometimes watch a few and go, well, that's not right. That's been made up, isn't it? And which I'm quite proud of him. At 9, he can spot that. He gets really blown away when I'll be pointing at the screen going, know him, got her phone number. Yeah. I talked to her the other day and he's like, wow. So that's why I like it. Only way to impress the 9-year-old.
Well, that's it. Yeah. Well, you should know almost everyone on this show. It's we've kind of I think Woodcut's done really well of getting people from all over the paranormal.
Yeah, I know all 4 of I know.
Yeah.
I think the only one I don't know to talk to is probably Danny. I know the 3 of you to talk to, but it's still quite sort of quite. I do like it, sort of seeing it's not it's real names in the business as opposed to people they've just plucked out because of the way they look or something. Does that make sense? It's real people.
Yes.
Most of us in the business will know the name and will know of the person. So
yeah.
And what about the hauntings? What's happening with the hauntings?
So the hauntings had a little bit of a break from Halloween last year. As I said earlier, it's kind of, well, it was all us faults really. We all kind of needed that bit of a break from Halloween, but we've kind of regathered. We've taken on a camera guy, Ben, and I think he's just trying to be me. His actual name is Ben Lee Roberts. So
is that Nat's other half?
That's Nat's other half.
It is Nat's other half. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So if there's not enough for one Lee Roberts being on screen, we've now got 2 on the hauntings. So we're coming back, all guns blazing. We did an investigation. To be honest, we did the first investigation back, and we tried something a little different. We tried to do it as a show, rather than being a social media show where we didn't really interact with people at home. And we just kind of went on with the show and got on with the investigation and didn't really have that interaction. So anybody could watch it at any time. This was the theory behind it, and would feel like they're watching the show, and there was no interaction with people at home, and they were thinking, oh, why couldn't we get involved in that? But it didn't work. It didn't work. I wasn't myself. Ryan certainly wasn't himself. You could tell he was very uncomfortable. Pete didn't like the concept. So very quickly, literally minutes after finishing the show, we went, right, that is it. We're reverting back.
I prefer interactive stuff, if I'm honest.
That's right.
I think that's what makes you guys you.
Yeah, well, that's it. We lost everything that is about the hauntings. The sense of humour had gone. The banter between us all had gone. The natural kind of chemistry between us all had gone. So we kind of regathered. 2 weeks later, we went out to Waingroves Woods, which is in Derbyshire, and it was amazing, fantastic. Really, we was back to ourselves. Couldn't have gone any better, and we was really proud of that one. And then last Sunday, we went to a salon in Ilkeston in Derbyshire that had been reported of a few paranormal activity, and again, it went amazingly well. And in fact, we got some really good activity where. And there's a clip on the hauntings page where Ryan puts his phone on this shelf, and it sat there for a good 20 minutes. And then all of a sudden you see Ryan, his head starts nodding. He's going and he's mumbling something. And you see me pointing over to Ryan to get Pete's attention. And Ryan's saying, move me, I need to be moved. And the next thing, the phone edges towards the edge of the shelf and drops off. Just drops off the shelf. Nobody near it. No, I can say now. If I was looking at that from an outside point of view, this is it. I would be saying vibration from the road. Yeah. Maybe vibration from the portal that we had on the shelf. if I was looking at it and wasn't there, I could quite easily say, oh, was it a fishing wire around the phone, that somebody pulling it? Anything like that. You by looking at that clip, you would quite easily say, well, that can be explained. But being there at that time and watching it back, no, we've retested the portal. That's not got any vibrations on there. For that phone, it's a heavy phone. It's an iPhone XR, I think it is. So it's quite a heavy phone that was on there, and it was fully on the shelf. Yeah. And that portal had been on for a good 20 minutes, and at no point did this phone move. And then all of a sudden, it kind of edged over and fell off in one kind of swoop. So for me, that's not vibrations, because there was cars going over all the time, right, going by. The portal was sat there. So although, yes, there probably is an explanation there, scientific, I'm not sure what it is yet. But it may be vibrations, but I'm not sure. So we're quite, to be our second real one back. And to get something like that we weren't really expecting was fantastic. So we're over the moon with that. Back again, 19th of May, 9 o'clock on the Hauntings. We can do another one. Do it all again.
Cool. Well, we've been chatting now for nearly 26 minutes, so we probably should really talk about the hall,
So what was
shouldn't
this show
we?
about?
Yeah, I can't remember. It was the Lee Roberts show featuring Penny Griffiths. I know that much.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
But we've been chatting for about 26 minutes, so I think we better get on to the subject at hand, the very, very beautiful Wollaton Hall.
Amazing.
It's stunning, isn't it? And I was quite blown away when I found out how old it was, because I would have thought it was like late 1700s. But it actually started being built during the Elizabethan era, in the 1580s, which I was quite stunned about.
Finished 1588, I think it was, something like that.
Oh, that's history, Lee. That's history you're just quoting.
I knew you'd be impressed with that.
I was. It was actually completed the same year that the Spanish Armada was defeated. There you go, and something to do with Shakespeare as well. But and what I found very interesting is, I mean, the chap who designed it, he's also responsible for designing, I think it was Longleat, the architect. He also designed Longleat, which you can actually see the similarities in his design. But the site that it was on was owned by the Willoughby family, the actual Wollaton estate, and they had a lot of coal mines there. Did you know this?
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know about the coal mines. No,
that's where they made their money from. That's where the Willoughbys originally made their money from mining coal. And apparently the stone, and I found this in a newspaper article, the stone that they used came from Lincolnshire that was used to build the hall. And they didn't actually pay money for it. They exchanged coal from their mines for the stone that they used, which I thought was
good idea.
Seems logical, doesn't it? So that was the first thing that blew my mind a little bit, that it was as old as it was. I thought it looked 1700s, not late 1500s. But then something else blew my mind a wee bit. Now, I grew up in a little tiny village in Norfolk. I'm from Essex originally, but I grew up in this tiny, and my parents still live in this village. And one of the most famous things, there was a very famous famous to some, rebellion that happened pretty much about a mile and a half away from, they gathered about a mile and a half away from where my parents are living. And it transpired that Sir Francis Willoughby, who was the first owner of Wollaton, and was the one who commissioned the building, his dad was a noble, a sir, I can't remember what his first name was, but Sir Willoughby, and he was killed during something called the Ketts Rebellion, which I won't go into detail what it is, because if anyone wants to look it up, but it was all to do with land rights and things like that back in the late 1400s. Anyway, where that actually met was about a mile and a half where my parents live in Norfolk, which is about 250 miles from Nottingham, about that?
Yes, yeah.
Which I thought was a very strange correlation. The fact that I used to pass the tree, it's known as Kett's Oak, I used to pass the tree where Robert Kett got all his rebels together to lead this rebellion. I used to pass it most days, and it's still there. It's called Kett's Oak. And Sir Francis Willoughby's dad was killed by the rebels due to this rebellion in Norfolk, which I thought was quite a weird connection, really. Isn't it just? And think about it, in those days, in the sort of 1400s, 250 miles would have taken them a week or so to cover. So
definitely,
I just thought that was quite an interesting. Yeah, so it was finished in 1588. Now, so it's got a lot of years worth of history, and we'll go on to what it was famously used for in the 2000s towards the end, because some people may or may not know that fact. When did you first investigate it, Lee?
So going back, I used to go there as a child on school trips and things. So I was my history is through Wollaton Hall as growing up and seeing kind of the Grand Hall, and then as a police officer back in 2002 till 2009, that was actually part of my beat, Wollaton Hall.
Wow.
So that is where I really kind of got into it. So every time there was kind of an alarm went off, burglar alarm, I was there first. I wanted to get there and think, wow, this would be a fantastic place. And kind of just delving into the paranormal at that point and looking into doing the kind of bigger investigations, and got talking to Mick Smurthwaite, who's the manager there, he's still there now, and we got chatting about it, and he said, that'd be really good to do some kind of investigation. Do you fancy coming along and doing one for the staff that are here? Because they'd love to do something like that. So we agreed to do a staff one. And this is back in 2006 when we did the staff one there. And it was amazing. It was fantastic. I was still in the police at this point. It was kind of a free event for all their staff. And it was, we got some really, really good responses and different things. That was the first time we'd been in there. First time I'd been down in the wine cellars. So many rooms that you could just go in and walk around. That we then decided, right, let's do some public events, because it was so popular, and it just snowballed from there, really. So it was around 2006 when I first did an investigation.
Right. So you're saying you got some really good evidence, or had some really good experiences. Can you tell me about that?
Well, back then, you can imagine 2006 wasn't all the high tech gear that we've got now. It was very much kind of the old style EMF meters, just handycam camcorders, cameras, things like that. So we was getting quite a lot on the EVP recorders, the sound recorder. We were getting a lot on there. We was getting a lot of the mediums picking up on things, whether people believe in mediums or not. They was picking up on quite a lot of good evidence. But for me, it's Wollaton Hall, that evidence you can find quite easily. On the net, even back then, 2006, people knew the history of Wollaton Hall. But one of the things that we captured on there was just we used to have a wind-on camera, so we didn't have mobile phones and things at that point to be taking fingers. So we just had like a wind-on camera, and we took lots of photos. And on one occasion, we was walking around. It's called Room 19. Room 19 is next to the Willibrey Room.
Get your teeth in, boy.
Put my teeth back in. Which is where we do our briefings when we do the events. We did our briefings in there. Room 19 is next to it. And lots of people have claimed to see the grey lady in Room 19 looking out of the window. And she looks over the lake. She's also been known as the Lady of the Lake. She looks over the big lake, which is at Wollaton. And we took quite a few photos. And in this photo, there was this kind of grey, misty figure in all these photos that we took in this room, no matter which way we pointed this camera. And then as soon as we came out of the room and took photos, you look back at those photos, there's nothing. There's not this grey mist.
And this is with a normal camera, film camera, not a digital.
This is a bog standard film Kodak little camera that you wind on. Really, really kind of basic camera. So it was strange to get that really in the early days of trying to get the evidence, and we got that straight away. And the staff that was there was all saying, wow, we've had people come in here and come out again and go, oh, that tour guide in there that's in fancy dress is really good, really informative. And they know there's nobody in there in fancy dress. There's nobody in there of a tour guide. People have experienced that over the years, and we've actually got this kind of grey, misty figure on camera. So that was the first bit of evidence that we caught there. And also down in the wine cellars. So the wine cellars run down. It's like two corridors down there that are both around 50 feet long. And at the very end, is the Admiral's Bath. So it's like a natural little pond in there that you get. And the Admiral Rodney, when he was there, used to go and bathe in there. And when we had a few earthquakes kind of very early on when we was investigating. So it would have been around 2007, 2008, and all the water drained from this natural well. And it's never returned, never ever returned, this water. But it was quite full when we first went in there. But we took some photos down there as well. And we also got quite strange kind of dark figures in there. But it is dark in there. It is quite dark down there anyway. And it is quite damp and kind of sandstone. So I always put that down to moisture. But lots and lots of people have experienced that over the years. It's a really, really good location to get down there and turn all the lights off in the wine cellar. And you're at the deepest depth of Wollaton Hall. And there's two entrances to two different caves in there that are sandbagged up now. But you can walk in about 10 yards, walk in there, and then walk back out again in both these different tunnels going in different directions. But you just think, I wonder where these tunnels eventually ended up. These tunnels would have gone somewhere, and for a reason. It's a brilliant place. I love it. I love Wollaton Hall.
So have you been back there since gadgets became more sort of familiar and any names come up or?
I mean we've been there doing events there since. I mean, the last one was February, I think, this year. So we did at least 2 every year since 2006. So you can imagine the experiments, the gadgets have always developed, always getting bigger and bigger. Sometimes we've gone and we've had absolutely nothing. It has been really, really dead, really dead. Other times we've gone and it has really kicked off in a big way, in a real big way. From capturing, so names wise, there is always an Elizabeth that comes up. I always, it's a running joke with me because I always say Elizabeth comes up on everything. Wherever we go, Elizabeth comes up. She seems to, and Elizabeth, the name, seems to follow me everywhere. Wherever we go, there's an Elizabeth that comes up on equipment. So that's a running joke with me. But we did lots of guests and things have always come up with the name Elizabeth. But also, what is interesting, on like the Alice box and through on the radios, Francis comes up a hell of a lot in Wollaton Hall. Now, Francis Willoughby is
There's
obviously
a lot
one
of Francis. There's a lot of Francis in there.
Yeah.
Just the reason I asked is there's certain names, as you tend to get with families, that repeat themselves. Now, quite a few of them were married to Elizabeths, so that's quite an interesting one. And some of them even had daughters then called Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Francis is an incredibly common name. I mean, I'm just looking at the lineage of who owned it. And at least, let's have a look, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4, I can't think what the plural of Francis would be, but at least 4 Francises.
Francises,
And so that's quite an interesting one, that's a prolific name.
And what's good is, it's not just people going, I'm picking up on a Francis. Because that's easy to do. Anybody can go and look and go, I know, how little I know about history. I know that there's a Francis Willoughby connected to Wollaton Hall. But when you take in an Alice box or a radio or a portal,
you can't fabricate that.
Yeah, and Francis comes through, you're thinking, well, wow, how is that a coincidence? And it doesn't happen just once. It's not just happened the one time. It's happened on many, many occasions, not just with my equipment, but with guests' equipment. And it continually comes through. It really does. So, I find that really interesting. For me, that's kind of proof of going, well, there's obviously something there, whether it's residual or something. There's something there that is pushing that name forward. And Elizabeth is exactly the same.
Well, the first Francis, the Sir Francis who built the place in the 1580s, his wife was an Elizabeth.
Yeah.
So Elizabeth and Francis, they definitely are very, very common names. That is the reason I ask, because there's certain names that do get repeated a lot, and if they've come up on like word generators and through spirit boxes and portals, it's an interesting sort of correlation to it all.
Yeah, I mean, and they don't just come out in certain. They come out all over the hall. It's not just in certain areas. So you go down the cellar and you always get a Francis, or you go up into the Willoughby room and get Francis. It's everywhere you go. Wherever you're using that equipment, you will get that through. We've had it in all the rooms. You get that name comes through. So for me, that is good, because it shows proof that over the years this same name's coming through. I mean, and you look back on Haunted Events UK. I purposely don't put that evidence on social media, where I could do, and I know some companies would do, but for me it's about the guests on that night getting their own experience. So when a guest comes, so now another team's taken over Wollaton Hall, they might be doing an event at Halloween or whatever, they then go into there. They won't have that preconceived idea, unless they're listening to our show, of course. And they won't go in there going, oh, you know, let's look for a Francis, let's look for Elizabeth. So every guest that came through with Haunted Events UK, unless they've been on an event before and experienced that, wouldn't necessarily know that we've picked that up before. So for them to then get that, we'll go, wow, you know, that's a guest caught that 3 months ago. You wouldn't have known that, but
I think even if you've looked it up, I mean, as you know, I've said this to you before, it's very rare that I go into a place and I don't have an idea of some of the history or some of the names associated with it. So I'm not going to sit there and sort of say my sensitive mediumistic abilities are having the name Francis yelled into my head. They might be, but I'm not going to say it because, that's obvious, that's just my history knowledge saying there's a Francis who should be here talking to you. He was married to an Elizabeth, under Elizabeth I as well. But if the name Francis or Elizabeth or Thomas comes up on a Alice box or an Ovilus or through a spirit box, that's a lot harder for me to say that's just my history knowledge making that happen. Yes. That's where my history knowledge can turn round and say, well, did you know that Francis and Thomas are names associated with the Willoughby line? Who owned this hall? And that I think is... I think that's for some guests they quite like that, because you can't fabricate that. You can't. Let's be honest. You could fabricate spelling out Francis on a Ouija board. You could do that. Yeah, of course you could. But when it comes through a random word generating type, or comes through as an EVP on a digital recorder or whatever, that's a Class A sort of, my name's Francis. That's a lot harder to fabricate, and yet that's when the history comes in and you can say, well, actually, that does make sense. That does correlate to here. So I think it works. It works on both ways. It depends what the equipment is, and it depends if you have sort of almost like independent verification of that being, so it could be a medium saying, I'm hearing someone yell the name Francis, and 2 seconds later the word Francis comes up on the Alice box. That's a bit different. So it's an interesting one, but the fact that name, Francis and Elizabeth, but you obviously have an Elizabeth in your life somewhere then, Lee, or had. Yeah, well, with not that I know of. Were you an Elizabeth on a Friday night when you're not working? Since being very, very young, whenever I've kind of looked into the paranormal or spoke to people that are kind of spiritual, they always picked up on an Elizabeth, whether it be me not even having anything to do with the paranormal or me being out on investigation. It's very rare that I do an investigation and Elizabeth doesn't come up on some point, some equipment or some point in the night. Elizabeth, like the other night we did the hauntings, Elizabeth came up on the equipment, and lots of people at home was picking up on an Elizabeth, and I just have to chuckle to myself because it is kind of a running joke. Me and my sister, Sarah's also into the paranormal. She gets the same. She gets Elizabeth, and it's kind of a running joke now. We've had that since kids, and we always say. Have you checked your family history? Have you checked that you haven't got a great grandmother?
Penny, have I checked my family history?
All right, because your sister checked it.
No, she's worse than me.
Really?
No, not really. And I'll tell you the one person that is kind of the saving grace in all this is Eddie, my 11-year-old son, who is a history buff.
Is he now?
History.
You didn't tell me this.
He loves history. In fact, you ask him, what do you want to be when you grow up? He wants to be a royal historian.
I knew I liked your son.
His type of fun is sitting on his iPad with the Ancestry app, looking through our family history.
Get him on it then. Get him on it.
It's his task. In fact, I've already tasked him. It's his task to try and work his way back until he finds an Elizabeth somewhere. But he's not yet.
Did you disown him?
He's not got quite
Have you
yet.
disowned him because he likes history?
No, bless him.
No.
I can use him to my benefit.
I can't believe 2 years we've known each other, Lee, and you only just telling me your son's a history buff.
He's like my little historian box that I've got in my head, but he's a real person. So if I need to do anything historian and you're not available, Penny, I can then turn around to Eddie and go, Eddie, can you just have a look in your horrible history books?
Well, that's the thing. That's what you got to buy my book for, then, to let your son read it.
He would love it. He would, honestly, he would love it. He would love anything like that. He loves history. He's just. Oh, what I was talking about the other night, I forgot what I was talking about. Was doing something on history, and he came in and gave us this whole spiel on why something happened. I forgot what it was, and me and Maz just turned to each other and was like, "How does he know all this?" We don't. It was.
I like that. I like that. Oh, I feel happier that there is at least one person in the Roberts household that can spell history and knows what it is.
Yeah, bless him. Yeah, he does. He loves it, bless him. Yeah.
But I reckon you must have an Elizabeth in your family tree somewhere that's watching over you.
Yeah.
That would seem logical. That would seem logical.
I will let you know if we find anything.
Please do. But yes, Elizabeth is a common name associated with Wollaton. From looking at the sort of the owners and their spouses and everything else, Elizabeth is a very, very common name. But in 1801, there was a fire that kind of did a lot of damage to the hall. Yeah. And then it was remodelled by one Geoffrey Wyatville, who was also responsible for Chatsworth House. Yeah. And again, if you look at the style of Chatsworth, you can see a correlation with Wollaton. Yes.
Yeah, there's a resemblance there. Yeah. Massively.
Yeah. So I didn't find out that anyone died during this fire. But has anyone ever mentioned smelling fire or smells that they can't explain?
You do. There are two wine cellars. One we don't use very often because it is just it's just too dark, damp, and horrible. But we don't. But when you walk in there, you just smell smoke. And there is no cause for smelling smoke.
There's no chimney. Smoke. There's no lit fires anymore or anything like that in the fireplaces.
Nothing like that. Nothing at all. But you do smell this kind of soot and smoke in there. But then you also get that in the regular cellar that we normally use, the wine cellar down there. You do get quite a lot of smoke caught on cameras and things, but you also get that smell. You get a lot of people holding the chest in the throat, as in they feel like they're coughing and spluttering. But it's mainly on the lower areas. As you get higher up, you don't get as much. So you get onto the first floor where room 19 is in the main museum. You don't get any of that. It's very fresh. You get that feel of it's lifted a little bit, but the lower you get, the heavier. It's almost like it's trapped. The heavier it goes. And you can literally tell. You walk into it. Sometimes you walk in and it's like, wow, this is really kind of heavy. You can feel it on your chest, feel it around your throat, almost like a burning at the back of your throat sometimes. Which you would be if you was inhaling the smoke and things. It would be burning your lungs and in your throat. And that's what you feel like sometimes. It's really strange. But my theory on it is always kind of, it's like you say, it's as if it's trapped, because if it was, smoke rises, heat rises. So you would think the higher you get,
that's what I was thinking.
The more intense it would be, but it isn't. It's kind of locked down under Wollaton, which makes me think. I wonder if something there was the cause. There's some plot there or something there that was the cause of that fire. That is where you're getting the extent of this activity, because that is the cause of it. That's where the the trauma happened.
Possibly. I'd have to look further into the fire.
Yeah. Yes, the fire spread through the hall and it caused lots of damage. But the actual trauma of it and the emotions of somebody doing that, or the accident, or however it happened, I think happened down below, because that is where you get a lot of the activity.
Okay. Well, you know, when people, one of the criticisms people give when you go to a location and you say it's active, they say, well, how can it be active? Nobody died here. You know, it's like you have to have died in a place for it to have any kind of activity. And that was, I mean, I know that people who live there would have died then from natural causes, you know, it's one of those things. But I thought, let's see if there's any traumatic deaths. And sadly enough, I did find one. Well, it's kind of two, because it's two young lads, from January of 1870. I don't know if you know about this one.
No.
There was two lads.
Enlighten me, Penny.
I will. There was two lads. Apparently there's a pond or a lake on the premises that used to ice over. Yeah. And these two young lads, George, who was 13, and Benjamin, who was 11, their surname was Matthews. They were the sons of Wollaton Hall's park keeper. And in the sort of late December, early January of 1869, 1870, they were skating on the water. And as what happened, the ice broke, and they both fell in. And apparently somebody was trying to save them, but they just couldn't grip on to the pole that he was leaning out across the ice. And this actually is me being deadly serious here. I am not actually laughing or being sarcastic or whatever. Apparently when I think it was Benjamin just couldn't hold on, this was the 11-year-old, he just turned round to the guy, and this was in the newspaper I found, said, "Goodbye, I have to go," and just went below the surface, and they couldn't get to either of them again. So, and that was in the grounds, so George and Benjamin Matthews. I'm sure there's probably more things like that would have happened since sort of 1580s, but that was one I specifically found from 1870 in the newspapers. So this poor groundsman, a park keeper, lost both his sons because they were skating on the ice, which I think is it's the fact that it actually said in the newspaper, in the witness statement, the chap who'd been trying to save them said, the younger one said, "Goodbye, I shall have to go," and just went below the ice. And it's almost like something you'd see in a television programme, but this was fact from 1870. This is what this child said to him as he couldn't hold on anymore, which I actually had a genuine tear in my eye as I was reading that this morning.
I have seen pictures of the lake completely frozen over with people skating on it. That's a really sad story. That's really sad. But people have seen people on the lake. The Lady of the Lake is a very well-known spirit that is seen over and over again. But my question would be, now knowing that story, people see a figure floating across the lake and automatically go, "Or the Lady of the Lake." It's a woman kind of with a flowing dress or whatever. Is that just is that to do with these two lads? But they automatically go as it's the Lady of the Lake.
Because the Lady of the Lake is the famous assumption and is the cliche and everything else.
That's what people associate it with. But is it these two boys?
Or it could even be their mum looking for them.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, as a parent, if if your children had died in horrific, and that is horrific, you probably would almost still be looking for them in the afterlife, wouldn't you? So maybe it's their mum looking for. But yeah, so that these two young lads drowned through the ice. Wow. So there you go. I've helped you in a way. I've given you something. Yeah. See, history ain't all bad. Well, it's upsetting, but it ain't all bad.
Yeah.
So moving on, but that does explain, like you say, that everyone does automatically, if they see a figure by a lake, it's got to be the Lady of the Lake, because that's the whole sort of synonymous myth and everything
Assumption.
With water. Water nymphs or water sprites and all that kind of thing. Maybe it is one of these boys. Maybe it's the mother of these boys looking for them.
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, I mean, a lot of people do that. A lot of people see things and assume it's one thing, where it could quite easily be something else, and we'll just never know. We'll probably never ever know. Nope. We will never know. No. That's probably a fact. But it could be a number of things, and I'm sure that's not the only trauma that happened in and around that area.
Wouldn't surprise me. No.
So, yeah.
No. But in 1924, so quite a long time ago, the building was bought by Nottingham County Council, and I read that the then owner, another Willoughby, decided to sell because he wasn't spending any time there because it had got too noisy and dirty from local industry, and he was spending more time up in North Yorkshire at his ancestral home up there. So he sold it, and the local authority took over, and that's pretty much when they started to turn it into it's a natural history museum, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they still own it now. The local council still own it, and it is still, the natural history museum. So you've got the famous giraffe that's in there, and a gorilla that's in there that have been in there since years and years and years ago. It's quite a famous photo of them taking the giraffe up the Wollaton driveway and into the hall to be put on its pride of place in the hall, and it's still there today.
But probably the most famous thing that Wollaton has been used for, which people might not realise it was used for, and I'm going to let you tell people about this one, Lee.
So 2011, it was used as Wayne Manor, the home of Batman.
Not my husband's house. Not my husband's house. He's away. Not my husband's house.
It was in a Dark Knight Rises, the Hollywood film, and it was used as the backdrop for that film. So Christian Bale, Tom Hardy, Michael Caine was all in and around Wollaton Hall.
Oh, I'd love to have met them. But interestingly enough, it's only 5 miles from Gotham in Nottinghamshire.
Yes.
What an amazing parallel.
It's strange, yeah. You find we had a massive rise in people coming on events just after that, and some people was coming and they just weren't bothered about the ghost hunt. They just wanted to see Wollaton Hall and the Batcave. They wanted to go down the cellar and see the Batcave. Even though we were telling them this part actually wasn't used. The wine cellar was full of scaffolding. So when the big Hollywood trucks turned up, the wine cellar didn't cave in because the trucks would have been parked on top of it. So that was just all scaffolding down in the wine cellars then. So we'll tell them that they didn't actually use this part of it, but they still was adamant they want to go down there and see the Batcave. But you get loads of people, even today, going and just wanting to see Batman and be part of where the famous Wayne Manor was. But it really did a huge favour for Wollaton Hall and the surrounding area.
Well, would you believe I didn't know until I was looking up for this show that there was a Gotham in Nottingham?
Yeah, not too far away.
5 miles. No. 5 miles north, according to this.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a very, very little town called Gotham, and apparently that is why the one of the researchers found Wollaton Hall. They was doing the research of where they can find for Wollaton, and apparently for some reason Michael Caine and Tom Hardy were also doing a project in the UK at the same time, so it was easier to find a UK location. So they was looking around and came across Gotham. So then they looked at halls in and around Gotham at a certain mile radius and found Wollaton Hall. And thought, right, perfect. And that's where they got Wollaton Hall from, through Gotham itself, the town Gotham, or the village Gotham.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Wow. Well, it's kind of fueling my fire, if you pardon the pun. It sounds like something I'd want to go and visit and look around and at some point. Anyway, next time I'm in your neck of the woods, Lee, maybe you can take me over there and you can show me around. Who knows? Yes,
well, at any point, I've been told, even though we're not running events there, I'm always welcome. I'm told to go back and show people around.
I'll carry your K2 for you, so I can have a look around as well, if that's all right.
We can have a little day trip. And the beauty of it is, at Wollaton, is you can walk around Wollaton Hall at any point, and it is just an amazing venue. And down in the cellars is always dark. So if those that like dark places, you can go down there, turn the lights off because it's always dark. But one of the beauties of Wollaton, one of the kind of the hidden gems there, is up in the roof space is a ballroom. So as you walk, so you've got the cellars, you then got the ground floor where the entrance is, and the main grand hall, and the roof to the grand hall it's huge, very, very high, very, very high. You can go up on the first floor, and then you can walk around the grand hall, kind of around the balcony of it. But then there's some windy staircase that goes up around one of the towers, and you come out in the ballroom, which is in the roof of Wollaton Hall.
Wow.
And it is amazing. It is fantastic. Nobody knows it's there. It is like a hidden room, but it is huge. It is the length of Wollaton Hall. If you look at the pictures of Wollaton, the main base of Wollaton Hall, it is the length of that, and it is just a hidden little gem. It is amazing up there, fantastic, but very, very echoey because it's that big. It's very echoey. So to do any paranormal work up there, you have to. You're calling out, and you're almost having your own voice echo back at you. Yeah, and it's very, very hard to concentrate when you're up there. So we've not really used it much. Other than doing kind of a mass seance or a mass vigil up there.
That's what I was thinking would be the idea, like a spirit circle type event.
That's right. Yeah, that's what we've done. At the end of the night, kind of Halloween, we'll take all the guests up there because it's big enough to fit 100 people or more up there. All stand in a big circle and do a bit of calling out and seeing what we can get as a big circle. But it is beautiful. The whole building is just fantastic. The grounds
certainly looks stunning. What I was looking into it. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, brilliant. Thank you so much, Lee. The fact that I've taught you some history stuff that you didn't start snoring at, I am quite proud of myself. We've mentioned all the things you've got going on. One last thing we didn't mention. Obviously, you're guesting on other people's events now, but you've got an important one coming up at the village on the 8th of June with some mad girls that I know. Yes.
So that's a charity that is close to I think it's Joanne's heart.
Yeah, it is.
That is part of what they're doing. So they're doing regular events that are part of this Paranormal Charity Warriors. Yes. They've already done a couple at the village. So they're coming back to the village. I'm going to be there. Ryan Griffiths and Pete Cox from the Hornsons are going to be there. Ashley Buckingham from Celebrity Ghost Hunt, who was part of that last year, he's going to be there as well. And I can tell you now, from working with those girls, it is a fantastic night.
They're amazing.
We have a really good laugh, high energy, really good levels, really professional.
Yep.
And it is just a fantastic night. What we normally do is split the guests off into certain groups, and then myself, Ryan, and Sam Bennett, who's one of their mediums, go off into like area 2 and do a bit of a vigil. And we got some really fantastic results last time, but I can't recommend that enough. That event, I mean, there's events all the time at the village, but that one in particular, I can recommend as being high energy, really good fun, which is the main thing. You want when you're on a night out, you want to go and have fun.
Oh yes,
and
definitely.
that is non-stop laughs and fun all the way through.
Like I say, I investigated Bromham Mill with them this weekend just gone. Well, it was Paranormal Sisters, but the Paranormal Sisters are in effect Paranormal Charity Warriors as well. And my face hurt the next day from smiling and laughing so much, but in a good way, not in a disrespectful way, but in a good way. So that should be a good one if you're not doing anything. I think it's June the 8th. You can get tickets from the Paranormal Charity Warriors page. It's if you're looking for an investigation to see lots of different styles as well of people how they investigate. Because I know you're very different to Ashley, who's very different to Ryan in that respect, who's very different to Sam, who's very It's a great way of seeing lots of different styles and taking bits and seeing what works.
Yeah, it's good,
you.
and I think that is kind of the way forward at the minute. I worked on the Paranormal Unity event a couple of months ago now that Ashley Buckingham did, and we invited loads of people from all different parts of the paranormal.
It was very varied, your list, wasn't it?
Yeah, and everybody came on, and I'll tell you what, like I've poo-pooed Paranormal Unity in the past and said, look, there's too much backbiting and backstabbing in this industry for it to go anywhere. But that was a breath of fresh air. To walk in there, all the smiley faces, everyone was having a laugh, everyone was having a joke. We was all getting on, we was all interacting with each other, all kind of passing notes to each other and swapping notes and seeing how other people work. Yeah. And it was just a real good, friendly event, which I think this Paranormal Charity Warriors one is all. That's what it's all about.
Yes.
Just going, enjoying yourself, getting on with other people, and I cannot recommend them enough. Events like that.
Yeah, I agree.
If anybody wants to kind of go on anything like that, obviously get in touch with Penny, get in touch with me, or the Parasearch team. Like I know Joe and Gemma's been to a few who do the Supernatural show. Like any of those guys, get in touch with them, ask them when is the next kind of event where there's a few people from different parts of the paranormal, because they are fantastic. They're amazing. I can't champion them enough.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you so much for your time, Lee.
That's all right, my pleasure.
I'm sure we'll be speaking again soon, towards the end of the year, when we think of another place that we can talk about. Because I've run out of all the places you gave me, so we've got to think of some more. Yes. If anyone wants to get hold of Lee, they can do. He's all over social media, and I mean that in a good way. He's very accessible, I suppose, is an easy way of putting it, and he's pretty friendly as well. He will chat to you.
Sometimes.
Normally.
No, I try. Yeah, I try unless I'm running an event, Penny.
Well,
I try. Yeah.
So I don't hold that against you. I understand the professionalism side. I promise.
Normally I will kind of, if anyone follows me on Twitter, I'll follow them back. If anyone likes me on Facebook and says hello, I'll say hello back. It's one of them things. You can search me on all the social networks. I'm on there. Come and say hello. I don't bite.
And I'm
often.
sure he'd like your feedback on when his appearance on Paranormal Captured next week. Will you be tweeting live during that one, like you did?
I'll be tweeting live like I did last night. Just get behind the show, whether you like it, whether you don't. Just get behind us all. MJ, Jane, Danny, and myself, and the other guys that are on there. Just get behind it. No matter who you're supporting, but no matter whether you've got any gripes with me or Danny or MJ or Jane or whoever, just support the show, because it's a UK-made UK show on UK TV, and that's what we've been wanting for years. So now it's here. Champion it, because if that does well, there'll be more in the pipeline, not just Paranormal Captured, but other shows. So let's get behind it, and let's see the future more with UK.
Well, on that note, because we've overrun by 6 minutes, so I'm going to have to do this bit really fast now. So I'm muting you now. Thank you ever so much for listening to tonight's Haunted Histories. I will be back next week, as ever, and I should be talking to Barry Guy this time about Hellfire Caves, which is going to be an interesting one. You can catch all of our shows on YouTube. Obviously, you can download them all from Spreaker as well, if you've missed one. 5 nights of the week. Bring you something different every single night. Tomorrow night is the PSH radio show, as always. So do listen in. Do let us know what you think. If there's a subject you want us to talk about, drop one of us a message. We're quite nice, really. And on that note, I'm going to wish you all a very good night. So have a good evening, sleep tight, and don't worry too much about things that go bump in the night.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.